So, we are discussing the story of Mahabharata, and we have reached the part where the Pandavas have left for a 13-year exile. The brothers, along with their wife, remember there was just one wife, five brothers were sharing their wife, Draupadi, and the mother was there, but mother did not go for the exile because of her age, so she was supposed to stay back, and she was staying back in Hastinapur. So the brothers, they set out for the wilds. And the next 13 years, these 13 years of exile, these are all about Pandava's struggle in the wild. As you know, they were the sons of different gods, so there was some divine connection there. They had those powers. And during these 13 years, they kept praying to their gods, they strengthened themselves. And if you travel across India, you'd find numerous temples, and many of them are believed to have been built during that period, that journey when Pandavas were traveling across India in the Himalayas, in the foothills, in the plains. And people believe that they built those temples during their journey. So, coming back to the story, there's an interesting event that takes place in the forest. So there's a magical creature called Yaksha, and this creature he consumes four of the five Pandava brothers because they were searching for money, and Yaksha was there and they could not answer his questions, and he consumes them. And when Yudhishthira gets to him and requests him to return his brothers, Yaksha once again he asks those questions, the philosophical questions, and if Yudhishthira gave the correct answers, Yaksha would return the brothers. So this whole episode, this whole passage of conversation, it's really interesting, full of wisdom and philosophical insights. The entire conversation, in fact, is quite long. I'm going to narrate here 3 or 4 questions at the most, and you'll get some idea what was going on in that conversation. So, for example, one of the questions is, Yaksha asks, what moves swifter than the wind? And Yudhishthira answers, mind. In one moment it is here, and in the next it can go to another planet, another world. Nothing can travel as fast as that. Next question, he asks, what is it? By losing it, you become rich. What could that be? And Yudhishthira answers, it's greed. And then the next question is, what is man's biggest enemy? And the answer is, anger. Then the next question is, what is the greatest wonder? What's the greatest wonder on earth? And it's also the last question in that conversation, and I think probably the best one. Yudhishthira answers, a man sees people all around him dying every day. Somebody or the other keeps dying. But still he refuses to believe that such a day would come for him. He never really thinks about it, never really cares about it. He is unable to imagine a world where he does not exist. And he goes on about his life as if he is going to live forever. That to me is the greatest wonder on earth. So, happy with his answers, Yaksha releases all the brothers and then they move on. So that's how the exile was going. There were numerous magic and fantasy creatures. They were in the wild and a lot was going on. As I've told you, during the 13th year, they were supposed to be in disguise. They could not come out. Nobody could see them. Nobody could meet them. Otherwise, the exile period would begin again. So that's why they disguised themselves and entered a distant kingdom and played different roles. Yudhishthira, he worked as a Brahmin advisor in a king's court. Bhim was He had now become a royal cook. And similarly, Arjuna, he was doing singing and dancing. By the way, there was an additional curse on Arjuna in that period where he was not going to be a male or a female. So that's what he was doing. He was doing singing and dancing, and he was, you can say, in some ways, a transgender. Similarly, the other two brothers, Nakula and Sahadeva, they were also working in the court, and the wife, Draupadi, she was a maid. So that's what they were doing in the 13th year. Back in the kingdom of Hastinapur, Duryodhana, he was desperately looking for these Pandava brothers. He wanted to locate them, identify them, so that he could keep them away for an additional 13 years. And so, for that reason, he sent out his spies in all directions. And eventually, they got some answers, some clues. And what happens then is Duryodhana decides to attack that kingdom so that he can see those people, those Pandavas, and then he can ask them for another exile. So the battle begins, and even the Pandavas, because there's a shortage of army there in the kingdom, so those Pandavas are also participating in the war, in the battle. And just when they were fighting and Duryodhana identifies his brothers, he says, "Aha, I've got you." But he also is being told that the exile period has just ended. So that meant that the Pandavas were going to come back. This was also the start of the war. What happens there? We'll talk about it in the next episode.